Hey everyone, I am Raphi Salem back with the Manhattan Edit Workshop with Josh Apter and Jason Banke and our special guest today, Joe Schuck. Gentlemen, welcome to the uh, monthly recording. We do this once a month, once a quarter, every day, et cetera, et cetera.
Increasingly regularly.
So Josh or Jason, tell us a little bit about the Mew, and then please introduce Joe.
Take it away, Jason.
Well, if you're tuning into this, you realize that we do training and post-production, production, that kind of thing, online and in person, all the gamut of applications that you can imagine. Been doing it now 21 years, Josh. 21 years. Joe, how long ago were you with us? What year did you take a class with us?
Let me pull up my Apple certification.
2007,
I was going to say pull
2008.
up your Palm Pilot.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, probably around there. Yeah, that's when I started with you guys.
Did
Yeah,
you say
I probably got cell
2007?
phone.
You didn't say
me-
2007.
wait, I just deleted an email from my clearing out my old emails saying Apple certification, and it would probably tell you that, but probably around there. Yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
That would make sense. Yeah, I still remember. I mean, working with you guys for however long, I still remember the day I called MEWShop. I was working at MLB.com at nights. I was working at Geico in Long Island part-time, and I called the office and Jason picked up, and I was like, does this make sense? And he just started. I don't know what position you were in then, but you just started working administration, and you pretty much convinced me to take the class, and then history
Sucker.
from there. Hey, I mean, I believe everything about this industry is risks you take, and the chances you get from taking those risks. So everything that happened, everything that where I am is because of that phone call, So I don't want to give you too much credit, Jason. I mean, you didn't really sell
No,
me.
you did 99% of everything else, but that's fine.
I'm an easy convinced person. I'm like a telemarketer's wet dream. So but coming to MEWShop, doing the 6-week course, becoming friends with Josh, becoming friends with you, and then becoming a teacher's assistant, and then still working, still living in Long Island, still training and working late nights at MLB.com to get by, and then becoming a teacher's assistant, and then from that meeting a lady who wanted to learn Final Cut that really didn't want to learn Final Cut, and then she put me on this path of reality television. That's the rest of history.
Mhm.
From there it's been.
Let me add to that, though. I think you can teach editing, but there are people in the class that we have that you get a sense that they feel it. They really they have a knack for it. And there've been, there's always a couple students in each class. I used to recognize this more when I was part of all of them, and I was in there with each class. But I don't know if you remember that there was a student, Spencer. I'm sure he was around this similar
Yeah,
time.
I
He
remember
had,
stuff.
like you, like an extra quality like that you would bring to your work, just whether it was an extra beat or even at the end where something didn't feel like it was important, you made it important. And I think that attention to detail, that the grasp of timing or getting inside the material, like that set you apart from other students in the class. Plus, you're fun to be around. And there's the skill, the hard skill of being able to put, to edit and do the job. And there's also this intangible part, which is, are you someone who's going to be able to collaborate? And, people are going to want to work with you on things and work through the arguments and work through the challenges and get to the finish line. And, you can't teach some of that. So, I think that you
No, I
possess those
appreciate that.
qualities.
Yeah.
Well,
Joe,
yeah, I mean,
I feel like they are complimenting you and they're about to ask you either for money or to help them move.
Right. We all could use it. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, even now I'm currently on I've been on the 90 Day Fiance franchise for probably the better part of the last half decade, 5 years. I moved from New York to Boston right before the pandemic hit, and they were already sending me hard drives. When I told them I was going to leave, they said, "We want to hold on to you, like we'll send you hard drives." And then silver lining of the pandemic, now, I don't need hard drive shipped because that was a pain. But going back to your point, as far as collaborating and having, yeah, I mean, people want to edit, and there's so many different skill sets you need. You need to be not to be an asshole, especially if you want to be collaborative and you want to be able to have a say. You gotta give and take. You gotta take people's ideas and show them that. It's something that we've always heard. Show your boss what they want and let them decide if they like it or not. But I work primarily with a story producer. Every show I work on is with a new story producer, which is great because I'm always networking, even on in the same company. But every every story producer I talk to, and this is not to toot my own horn, this is just what I've observed. They're always like, "Joe, we don't know. I don't work anyone like you." And then I always warn people, I'm like, "I'm going to be a pain in your ass this whole season. Like, I'm going to say, can I virtually knock on your door and talk about something?" And we're constantly working through story because reality television in general is just a very challenging thing to work on, because you never know what you're going to get in the field. We're an international show, so there's always things to work through. But yeah, being able to collaborate, being likable, and the number one thing you said, and showing that you care is huge. There's a lot of button pushers on these shows, and you're seeing a lot of them out of work right now. And something I do want to talk about as far as the industry as a whole and fears of it. But there are a lot of editors out there that come in and they just do a story producer's notes, and then sometimes I get that work and I look at it and I say, "There's no love here," So, and there's reasons why. Someone could be editing for 25 years and they're over it, and they just want to keep working. But I think that's what sets people aside. Josh, you said something at our 6-week class 15 years ago. I'll never forget it. I know someone else probably has said it, but be irreplaceable. Be someone that they will not let go of. So that's, and I'm a little neurotic. So, it all works very nicely for me, friendly, neurotic, perfectionist.
Joe, let's back up a little bit. So
Yeah.
My son is in film school. These guys, some of these professionals who are in the industry, they eat, breathe, and live movies and film and editing, et cetera, et cetera. Were you that kid that morphed into that guy that morphed into an industry professional? Give us a little background before getting to the 6-week, and then
Yeah.
And then did you immediately go to Hollywood after that, or was there a slow upgrading?
To be honest, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm not a huge movie buff. I'm not somebody that watches movies and remembers movies. And, when I read stuff, nowadays, I do, when you immerse something in it, I do find things interesting. I've been reading a lot of interviews with the director of the Dune series, and, he's been saying stuff that really catches my interest. But, when I was younger, I was like a B plus student. I took a communications class because I didn't want to take a language, and I found out that I liked editing. And it wasn't necessarily because I love movies. It was just because I like being able to tell a story. And it doesn't mean that if I wasn't fully put myself in the position of researching movies, I would really probably enjoy it. But I don't know. I work super hard, and I just don't have time. It's, even when I was an assistant editor, I was working 12, 14-hour days, depending on, what you do. So it's hard, I know that doesn't really answer your question, but.
Well, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Wait,
Yeah.
how do you explain that DVD collection if there isn't some sort of movie buff? Wasn't that your?
Yeah. My stepfather did pretty much own his own Blockbuster at a certain point. It was very sad when we had to get rid of all those VHSs that turned into DVDs and then turned into garbage. But yeah, Yeah,
Well, they're
my
in here
stepfather.
now, and I still watch them.
You bought,
We
oh, you
we
cheap
didn't buy the whole
asshole, right?
collection. We cherry
Well,
picked, but we bought a lot of them.
he's like, I could have used them.
Let's ship
It
them.
was
Send
like,
them,
Ship
give
them
me your.
to Boston now. Ship them.
Yeah, we
yeah, I
nobody
guess
needs
you're
them
right.
anymore,
I mean,
unfortunately.
my stepdad wasn't super. I mean, my stepdad is really like, he loves going to movies, but he's not like a film buff. Like he just likes, that type of idea. So maybe that instilled in me, some subconsciously. But no, I just remember, going into this class. I had a really good teacher in high school. He was fun. I remember working on the first iMovie, which is like with the lampshade iMac, and just working and learning how to use that stuff and getting into it. And then in college, really, you know, making, some short films in that and liking the idea of being able to storytell. And then from there, working on a reality show where I was an assistant editor, but I was really a junior editor because it was such a small shop and they really immersed me in the storytelling. And I worked my ass off. I almost, 24-hour shifts, slept on the couch. They put me up at hotels. At a certain point, they paid for a stipend of my apartment in Manhattan. So I would move closer to the office, which is how I moved from Bushwick, Brooklyn to Hell's Kitchen, Manhattan, which pretty much probably got me my wife because she saw this guy who had his own studio apartment in Manhattan. Little did she know I was only paying for half the rent. But those guys were great. I love them so much. The Alaskan Bush People production company, Parksville Productions. When I did Sight, Sound, and Story with you guys, I talked about that show. But they were, they really put me in they overworked me, but they put me in the lane of making me the editor I am today. So like when story producers ask me, like, why are you like that? That's kind of the reason. So hard work does pay off. Just again, risk and what do you get out of it,
So at what point do you, and this is more for Jason and Josh, at what point does a young professional say, you know what, I want to take my game to the next level, and then they go online where they hear about it, as we know, where our students are coming from. At what point is it a good time for people to enter into classes at Manhattan Edit Workshop?
Well, it depends on the class, I think, for sure. If you're taking a certified 3-day Premier class, that's scratching an itch to some degree. That's, self-taught people wanting to get a better handle on the formal, skill set. There are certainly specific reasons why you would take a shorter certified class. But in terms of the 6-week workshop is people, I think Joe is an example of that there's an interest there. There's some background in it, but to sort of gain a deeper understanding and be able to say, look, I'm loaded for bear here. I've cut a bunch of things. I know the history. I know why I'm doing what I'm doing to the degree that I can in 6 weeks as a young person. I think that's what we're finding is people who want to enter a professional life and a career as editors saying, I can't just sit down and watch a bunch of videos and learn the deeper skill of becoming an editor and the nuance of it and that sort of intangible part, right? I mean, the thing you remembered about the 6-week was make yourself indispensable. There's no video that teaches you, so you can learn on Lynda or whatever these places are and how to what keyboard shortcuts there are. But when you're working with an editor in person in the class, learning about how they came up, or when you're talking at the end of the 6-week about how to put yourself together and think of yourself as a company instead of an individual, to be scouting for that work, to like that, your brand is what you have. Your skill set can be replicated, right? Like Joe's not the only person who came out of that class knowing how to operate the software. What made Joe special was the dedication, was the willingness to go that extra mile, in addition to also being a great editor. So, I think that's what we find is people who are saying, I know I want to do this, or I discovered somewhere that this is something more than just an interest. And I'm ready to commit to something that's going to take me to a place where it's like a springboard for me to say, I've taken this risk. Now I can I can be there when the opportunity presents itself. I can make that opportunity because I have the skill set to back it up.
Jason,
also
you're, yeah, I was going to say you're hands-on with the students like right now. Have you seen a trend from years ago to now, or has it remained consistent?
Well, I think like Joe could speak to this too, is that like when you're around like-minded people and you've been somewhere else, whether it's in college and people don't know what they're doing, or in his case, he was working at a place where they weren't in the same mindset as him, and maybe they were happy, maybe that's what they wanted to do. But like you get around these people and it like catapults you into this creative sphere and inspiration. And with Joe, I mean, you were doing stuff at MLB at night that wasn't, it was editing, but it wasn't really editing, but you saw an
no.
opportunity and you started like, I mean, it was a system, right? I mean, it was a system. And like, I think people look at that stuff and they're like, oh, no, no, no. But you looked at it, you grew from that, you grew into a different position there. You also were teaching. And I think, you know, you came back and started teaching and everything like that. But like, I think what it is that class, that particular class, leads you to like catapult you into an area of like getting your confidence. You get the skills,
Confidence, exactly.
and you start to get hungry to, you see the, I don't want to say the dream, but the reality dream, as opposed like I can make money. I may have to work hard, but I can make money and I can be happy doing something that I potentially love, you know, as opposed to like you could be an executive now at Geico. Let's say, I don't want to crap on Geico, but like, but so whatever,
They
you
laid
can
off
be
80% of their staff.
and you could be, you know, yeah, you could be making a fine living, but clearly you wouldn't have been happy doing that.
Mhm.
You know, when I
Right.
came to MEWShop, I was working in the restaurant industry, and it was fine. I like doing working with people, teamwork, all that other stuff, but it wasn't fulfilling a a certain void of creativity. So you know that, I think that class, be like Josh said, it's beyond just the buttons and all that other stuff. It's bringing together your a bunch of things together to catapult you into, you know, launching your career.
And let's
Let-
not forget about the community aspect of it all, right? Just quickly touching this, if you just reposted my 6-week catch-up session video when I was working at Park Slope Productions, and half that video is talking about my buddy Jose Barrios, who I still work with, who I brought on to other shows, who was on the 6-week. He was a student when I was a TA. So like, and there's a couple other people that I stay in contact with, you know, like, I mean, I think a lot of people do come in the 6-week thinking they're going to get work right away, but as Josh, you know, or we keep mentioning, you know, it's not, it's a springboard, it's a leap of faith, and it, you know, they'll give you parts of what you need to work. But like I said, a lot of it is chance, a lot of it is risk. It's freelance game, that's how it is. But having that feeling supported, and having talking to the editor, Kate Sanford was the editor of The Wire at the time. She watched my work. She had minimal notes. And I was like, fucking awesome, you know, like that was such a great feeling, you know, like, and it makes you, and that's, you know, being an editor is like you're constantly second guessing your work, you know, like that's what makes you a good editor, because you keep going back and thinking, you keep refining, you thinking you're better. But once someone is there to be like, hey, this is great, that really helps you go a long way. So like, you know, that as well. And then I have another friend who just left his job of 20 years, and he just took the 6-week class. And he really liked it. He and then he ended up, I think he was like editing a short film in the Catskills. They like put him up at a hotel, and he like really loves it, you know, like, and going back to your point, Jason, like a job that's not fulfilling, you know, like he was working as like a debt collector for people who couldn't afford like affordable housing, which is like, that's soul crushing, you know, and now he's attempting to do this, you know, I mean, it's a leap of faith, especially at an age like this, but he's doing it. And, you
So
know, and I think
that's a good so that's a good segue into the industry as a whole.
yeah,
And the first thing we talk about when we talk about trends in the industry are people. So, you know, I'm curious if the type of people going into the industry today, and maybe there's a post-COVID aspect, maybe there's a remote working aspect, but there's people, there's money, there's technology, and we talked about AI in the last time we recorded, and then the culture. Because if you're not in the same room, with other people, then it's a very different culture. It's a very Zoom, and the world that we live in right now remotely is a very different culture. So that's open to all three of you, wherever you want to start. Trends in the industry.
I mean,
Well, I don't think Joe's going to get replaced by AI anytime soon. I mean, I know, but I do think that you had to mention this before, that the pandemic being a forcing mechanism for remote work, being something that wasn't just we'll ship you drives and you set up in a place. I was, Alan Title, right, Joe?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he during the pandemic, he and his son lived in our driveway in an RV, and he was cutting reality show in our living room while his son Ben and my son Desmond were going to remote school.
Was it love off the grid?
I know it was Aliens of Alaska.
Yeah.
God. Close.
It was horrifying stuff. But there was a reality pitch like that he was cutting for. Oh gosh, it's Ben Foster's wife was doing something, and they like pulled up in our driveway to hand them the media and their drive away. But he was like, "Look, I'll pay for the internet because I need it." Like when they started going remote, he was able to basically work with that lag, on a central server or whatever system it was that was allowing him to cut, but not have the media in front of him. And that
Which,
was,
by the way, this caveat from everybody I've ever talked to in my life, there's two questions that always annoyed me when I said I was a TV editor. They said, first, do you get to meet the people? I say, obviously not. I'm not the camera person. Second, are you able to work from home? And that question always was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, you know how much, I mean, I was at a place that had cubes and cubes of terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of hard drives in a server room. I was like, there's no way the internet would ever be fast enough. Someone just takes a look at my work and then just gives me notes. Like, I want them to watch. I want to see how they're feeling about it and talk through it instead of just being like, here are my notes, do them. I'm like, no, let's have a conversation first. But yeah, I guess, yeah, that, but industry, if we're talking about trends and stuff, and I know you say AI is not going to replace me, and yes, I'm aware AI is like what it can do right now, and maybe not reality television and stuff like that, but there is a fear amongst like a lot of people. I mean, I'm seeing it on tons of Facebook groups, a lot of people out of work right now, like lots and lots of people. And, I have a lot of friends that have moved up to being co-EPs and executive producers. And there was a huge amount of buying going on like 2 or 3 years ago of like all like reality shows, and everything. And I was there. I remember people asking if I was available, if I knew someone was available, editors. Now it's like for the last 2 or 3 years, like I've been so insulated, but reading, people quotes, it seems like things are drying up a little bit. And, the production company that I worked on for Bush People, they don't have a show right now. They're saying that networks aren't buying. So there's a lot of things at play here in my mind. You got, nobody knows what's going to happen with AI. You got the idea of cable dying. So where's that advertising money going? Who's watching these shows? And then this mountains and mountains of content on these streaming services. So what's really pushing networks and studios to, besides making art, to want to produce new things if their bottom line is just getting the $20 a month fee from. So like, I'm not so concerned that AI will take my reality television job. I think it will help me. It might remove an AE, which stinks because the entry level to become an editor is an AE. So that is concerning, in that degree. I do look forward to the day that I know Premiere already kind of does it, but I work in Avid. So being able to type in a sentence and it populating into a sequence for you in Premiere sounds awesome for my type of work, reality television, or the Sora stuff from OpenAI. Like, we are an international show. Like, we don't always shoot the best B-roll. I would be awesome. I could use my imagination and say, I want this shot, drone of, Moldova, like in the sunset. Like, a producer's like, do you have the shot? Oh, yeah, no problem. So, yeah, that's all exciting to me. But yeah, I'm just more concerned about like at the end of the day, it's a business. So it's like, is reality TV going to stay? Where is it going to go? And how long is this going to last? So,
well, one of the things I had brought up before in the question about trends of people, money, technology, culture. So we talked about people, we talked about technology, and we talked about culture somewhat. I am curious about the money aspect. As I said, my son's in film school right now. He's going to graduate. Is he going to be making minimum wage, $15 an hour? Is there a pay scale? Is there a difference between working in New York, working in LA, or working in Boston remotely?
well, remotely is, different. Yeah, it's a different thing now. I mean, I don't know. That's up to the companies that are hiring. I mean, I started out of New York, but your rate's your rate. You ask for what you think you deserve, and if you get it, you get it. And if you don't, then you either need to find another place or you take it for the time being. I mean, that's the great thing about working freelance. Everything is, as much as you hate a job, at least for me, a show could be so tough. It's only for 6 months. You can pivot. You can pivot after. If you don't think you're getting what you deserve, you can pivot. But money wise too. I know an editor right now who got, he was been editing since Amazing Race 1. He was getting paid very nicely, and he just had to take a huge pay cut. So like, it's happening a little bit. So don't mean to fearmonger here, but it's like, it is something to consider coming into this field. And it's like, in film school, I remember I went to film school and I was learning DV tapes. How long did a mini DV tape last? What? The amount of time I was in college, right? So like, I think it's important that kids these days, and even myself, it's hard because I do have 2 kids, and like, I'm working on a remote system on Avid. I don't even have my own editing software right now. So I'm not like messing around with Adobe, not messing around with any new features with AI, but you gotta, because you never know, you never know when things are going to come up where you need to utilize those tools. And I think that's something for kids right now, when you are hungry and when you do have time and you want to learn, start looking into that stuff, because like, that's obviously the future. So yeah.
Okay, so wrapping things up, what is the one takeaway that viewers should know about Manhattan Edit Workshop and or the editing industry? So why don't we go with Joe? Why don't we have your wrap up, and then Jason and Josh?
I mentioned earlier in the beginning, I'll always say this, just like, MEWShop was my first home. A lot of stories with these guys. Josh is my brother, Jason's my brother. We also work together in the sense of depending on each other. And MEWShop gave me a lot of those people and gave me the start I needed, to really want to get out there. And like I said before, a lot of people go into MEWShop thinking you're going to get handed a job, but it's just a tool added to your tool belt, and it gives you a lot of tools, more than you would get any other place. So I do appreciate that. And maybe maybe when AI takes my job, I'll come back and I'll teach MEWShop. Maybe I'll be teaching something. I did enjoy that.
Joe, what is what's coming up on your calendar? Any events, any showings, anything that people should look out for?
I think 90 Day Fiance, the most recent 90 Day Fiance is currently airing on TLC. I think it's also on HBO Max and Discovery Plus and whatever. And I'm currently working on the 7th season of Before the 90 Day Fiance, which is fun. But yeah, those are all streaming, and check them out. And yeah,
Great.
that's it. I got dinner
Thank you.
planned for tonight. I was pretty excited about that.
Very good. Jason, one takeaway, please.
Well, I mean, I think what Joe's saying is some hard truths, but it's also Joe is an example of you don't get discouraged, you pivot, you adapt, you grow. Joe has changed, to blow you up a little bit, buddy. You've changed your direction many times. You've taken a leap of faith. I don't know how many times when you had a job you were going to stay with. I don't remember it was maybe MTV. I don't remember. And you're like, I don't want to do that. MLB, they were going to offer you something. You didn't want to do it. You decided to go in a different direction. You took a pay cut. You learned something new. I know you switched from, you were using Final Cut, and you came, I think you even came back to brush up on Avid. Like
I did.
You moved to
one of the uses for the 3-day course, going back to that.
There you go. Yeah. But and you also, you changed, you left New York. I know how much you were thinking about moving to LA before you met your wife. Like there's like the bottom line is what I'm getting is if you learn the skills, you meet the right people, you build yourself as a person, and our classes are perfect for that. Joe's a perfect example. You pivot. So no matter what's coming down the line, whether it's AI or streaming services, there'll be different things to pivot to. Like, online people will start their own production shows and they won't need these big companies. And you could be working for a small outfit as opposed to 5 different shows at this place, and you pivot to each one of those. So, there's all kinds of options. But quickly, I want to just say one funny story about Joe, because my wife and I our anniversary was last month, and every time we pull up the video, and Josh was there as well. Sorry, Raphi, you would have been there too if I would have known you then. But
Thanks.
My godson was the ring bearer, and we fed him a bunch of cookies, these dry cookies, and no other food. And he's sitting in the audience after he was done bringing down the ring, and he starts throwing up in the middle of our vows. And there's a video, and you see my wife looking around, looking at the mother of this kid, like, what's going on? Because we weren't sure if someone died. It sounded like an old person dying. I'm not trying. And we had old people there, and we we're like, oh my God. But in the corner of the video is Joe's face and his reaction. And if I had it up now, I would show it to you. But without a doubt, every time I see that face, just smiling, because I'm sorry, Joe.
Does it make you angry that I was laughing?
No, not at all. It's just like my wife and I are like mortified. This is ruining our moment. Our this is the moment of our lives. Besides, like the birth of our children, like
over the rainbows playing.
There's Joe's smiling face just in the corner, just like loving every ounce of this. I don't know. Sorry.
Don't forget about the time I came over and I said I was going to do karaoke and
I started playing his music. By the way, Joe plays music, and I had no idea he was in a little rock band, and he was pretty good. Like, whatever. That's a whole other story.
Which also makes me a decent editor, because a lot of editors don't know how to sing. It's crazy. Don't know how to do music. Anyways.
Josh, let's wrap things up. One takeaway, please.
Well, I think what you see here is that the community is smaller than you think, and you never know who you're going to meet and what's going to happen. And I think part of what I love about the class, what I love about the school, is what we're trying to do is it's a good thing. There's a lot of people out there, they're just trying to make a buck. They're just trying to, make as much and pay as little as they can. And that's never been our philosophy. Is like, we're trying to give people the tools, the opportunity, the mentality, and the understanding of what it is to have a life as an editor. And so it's nice when you like kind of get these little reunions together and you've got a lot of wonder, like a lot of experiences, a lot of things that you can see like that I see in your trajectory. I mean, we knew you when you were a kid.
Yes, you were a kid.
Like 23, 24, I'm 37 now. 38.
And so I get a little verklempt watching someone have blossomed into an adult, a professional, a father. You know, that's the best you can hope for in this kind of work. So somebody should start playing the Mr. Holland's Opus theme for me and Jason. But you know, it's that's part of the mission is to you know to take people and just get them out into the world and let them do their thing.
To your point, you never know who you're going to meet. My takeaway is that Joe met Jason. Jason invites Joe to his wedding, and there's some kid throwing up at his procession, and then you get, you know, Joe laughing on your video decades later. So that is the power of community. Speaking of community, we have classes at Manhattan Edit Workshop that are weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. We've news coming up that I can't announce right now because it's not completely, but we've got a lot of big things coming up in 2024.
We're going to record a Sights on a Story event with the editors of The Bear. So we'll be releasing that at some point.
That's going to be nice. I actually worked with one of the assistant editors on that show. She was an assistant editor on one of the shows, and I saw her name. I'm like, that's awesome. You know, so I don't know if she moved to LA, you know, whatever it is, but it's crazy where you see people, you know, it's awesome.
It happens. All right, everybody say cheese on the way out. I'm going to stop the recording.